Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pixelists podcast, the podcast about all the nerdy things we love and enjoy. I'm Will, that's Blake. Today we're here to talk a little bit of Worlds Beyond Number, The Wizard, the Witch, and the Wild One, episode 2. Excited to dive into this one, my friend. But first, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's Monday, and yeah, it is a day.
It's Monday. That's right.
It is Monday. How about you? How are you doing today?
Good. I'm good. I got my coffee, my second cup of the day. It's getting late. I'm past my time where I was like, if it's past 2, I never have one. But I was like, let me get one going for the pod.
So you're playing a dangerous game later, good sir. Yeah. I think I have just 1 cup a day, but my cups are pretty big too. They're like a big cup. So
yeah, I used to be 2 a day, but recently I've been 1 a day. But I don't know, today, just figured, why not?
Why not, man?
Why not? That's right.
Why not? Climb up to the rooftops.
You could do anything.
You could fly. It's like, no, they can't.
They can't do that. No, you can. Little Key and Peele for anybody who's like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
Let's
see.
You
just know our channel's basically inside jokes between the two of us.
What do we need to say? Our giveaway, we are going to be announcing the winner Wednesday, which is 2 days from now. Which I guess we're going to do what we did last time. We'll just put out a quick video.
Yeah, I think so.
Doing that. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. We maybe also will go back to the original video and comment and respond to whoever won too, maybe just to make sure that they get the message. But yeah, definitely just check the video for sure.
We're growing.
We are.
That's all I gotta say. Are we gonna do a 10,000 sub giveaway? So we just did a 1,000.
I know,
like a few months ago.
I feel like
I'm all about it.
Yeah, I feel like we should do a 10. I feel like that makes sense. Yeah. 6, 7, 8, those don't feel very exciting, but 10, I feel like
every 1,000 subs, it's another giveaway.
Every sub.
We didn't tell you guys we're given a box of Tal'Dorei Reborn. We have to get rid of. So, and it's Tal'Dorei Reborn.
And you get a Tal'Dorei Reborn. And you.
All right.
But yeah, so the giveaway will be Wednesday. Look out for that. There's no Critical Role this week. But we still have our discussion on last week's coming out. That will hopefully be sometime this week. And we didn't forget, but our final discussion on Last of Us is still coming down the pipeline. We actually didn't plan it this way, but I'm actually glad we kind of have waited because it's kind of given me a chance to marinate and process on it.
I think we did the same thing with Loki or another show where we didn't do a discussion, or maybe it was Rings of Power, where we didn't do a final episode discussion, but we let it simmer a little bit. And then we did our kind of like, wasn't any good, or should you watch this?
Yeah.
So I think we'll do the same thing for TLOU.
That's right. So that is still coming as well. Is that it? I just think that's all I got.
True to our names of nerd stuff, since we'd never talk. We say all these shows, movies and games we like to enjoy, and there are no games on this channel. We're gonna do a little Diablo 4 discussion.
That's right. Okay, yeah, that's right. I forgot.
What we thought about it, and I don't know. I'm curious. Your thoughts, my friend.
Yeah. So the open beta, or the beta, let's say, has taken place over the last 2 weekends. Blake played both. I played just this past weekend. So yeah, we're gonna talk about that. So for anybody that likes video games or was curious about D4, be sure to check that one out as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it, right?
All right. Yeah. So, without further ado, let's jump into our actual discussion here. If you're new to the channel, especially if you're checking us out from Worlds Beyond Number and you haven't seen us before, one thing we like to do is recap what we're going to be talking about for this long form content. And we'll cut out that recap of this podcast and we will host it separately on YouTube for your viewing convenience. So if you happen to find yourself on just the recap, but you want to hear Blake and I's full discussion on this episode, it'll be linked down in the discussion box below. But yeah, Blake, you want to take us off on this one?
So this was episode 2, and like we've disclaimed before, I don't know if you can use that word, by the way, but As we've disclaimed, there may be some details that are a little fuzzy, so feel free to let us know if we missed anything in the comments. But basically, the episode opens up with a continuing on this moment where Grandmother Ren has just passed. Her and her familiar Taro have both passed on to whatever comes next, and here we find Ame and Suvi in Grandmother Ren's room with this quest now to find Ursulon. The night with the moon is high, and a dark, shadowy figure who we were told was walking down the road from the previous episode Stinger. This dark figure begins walking down the road and knocks on the door. It feels very ominous, very suspect. Ame tells Suvi to wait, goes downstairs and asks through the shut door, who is it? The person in a very creepy, disturbing voice announces that they are a traveler and that they're an old friend of Grandmother Ren they've come to say hello and pay their respects. Essentially, Ame says, well, who are you? And this person is offended and says, how dare you ask a traveler my name through a shut door?
Ooh, yeah.
And gives 3 names, not an actual name, but says, I am the Pilgrim of the Night. I think Traveler Under the Stars. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but yeah, it was. And of those 4 things you said, there's some combination of them.
There was also like King something. There was a 3rd name as well. And I apologize, I can't remember which one it was, but and then basically Ame says, well, it's not a good time. My grandmother just died. And basically says Grandmother Ren's indisposed. This Pilgrim of the Night asks, well, when can I come back? And she says, sort of panicky, 1 year from now. And the individual says, you have 1 year, and poof, vanishes, and it becomes day. It's like the middle of the day again. So on top of this total craziness, all like the milk in the ice box has gone spoiled. There's things like that, like some kind of like decay and things that have just gone bad now. And Suvi is like, what the heck just happened? And Ame's like, who was that? I have no idea. Suvi actually makes, I think it was an Arcana check, or maybe it was a history or religion check, but basically remembers from her studies that beings of the spiritual world never give their true name because that allows you to assert power over them. So like Ursulon's father, the Great Bear, no one knows their true name, again, because that can be used to assert authority and power over an individual. But what she remembers of her study was that the scariest spiritual beings had 3 names. And this character we just met announced 3 names.
Yeah, I think it was just the more names they had,
right,
like, the scarier they were.
Right. Well, but specifically for her, she had read about one with 3 names that had terrified her, was the example I was giving. So beyond this, they decide to look at some of the things that Steele had given to Suvi to pass on to Grandmother Ren. There is a book of sort of like the constellations of the sky that they're not sure what to make of it. And then there's also these drawings of different disturbing beasts. And they realize that these are the forms that the mages of Gathmire, I think, or Gathmir can take, including one particular form that Suvi recognizes. It is the form that Yorin took back on the night that she last saw her parents. Suvi and Ami talk about this, and they say essentially like, well, the mages of Gathmir, aren't we at war with them? And Suvi basically says, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but doesn't really share more beyond that. They know that before they can go find Ursulon, they need to first get Ame's familiar. That was part of the responsibilities given to her. And so they travel outside of the cottage, up this small hill to this small stone statue of this spiritual being that watches over the nearby river or the stream. And they affectionately have called him Mr. Cook? Mr. Food? What was it?
Mr. Soup. Mr. Soup. Because he's got like the offering bowl.
Yeah, the offering that if you go lay an offering at this statue, it's like a massive bowl. And so they lay some crackers down. And there's also one detail I forgot. Suve, before they leave the cottage, Suvi actually goes up to Ame's room and discovers a small blue, I think it was a cloak that was hidden under the blankets. And this seems to be from the children's story, maybe a gift from Suvi to Ame that she has been holding on to. And
It
also in
was
this
the
moment,
sorry, just
yeah, go
it
ahead.
was the cloak that her mother gave her from the prelude. You know, she wrapped her in it. It was
Okay.
that same one.
Okay. Wow. Cool. Also, looking out the window, she sees a fox coming out of the hen house with a dead chicken in its mouth. Kind of confused as to like it was just nighttime, now it's daytime. What's going on? Then fast forwarding back to this offering bowl, they put in some crackers. I think they put in like a thing of vodka or whiskey in it as well. And this spirit comes to life next to them. This small 2-foot figure who has a great accent and is like, "Oh yeah, they did a great job with my statue." It's basically like, "What do you guys want? What's going on?" And Ami's like, "I think I'm supposed to get a familiar from you." And they share all this other stuff, that's crazy stuff that's happening. And the figure's like, "I don't really know anything about any of that, but I can't help you with a familiar." And so Ame closes her eyes, and as she's thinking about this familiar and this ritual's beginning, that same fox comes out of the woods, sees the crackers in her pocket, sort of scurries up, and Ame instinctively grabs the fox and sort of poof, the fox becomes her familiar.
Yeah.
Immediately begins speaking to her. The fox this is also an awesome character, by the way. The fox is freaked out because it's like, I'm talking. What is talking? And just a very, I don't know, ignorant's not the right word, but there's a conversation later when Ame says to the fox, like, can you give me some space, or can you leave, give me some, I can't remember what the phrasing was, but they were like, yeah, sure, I can do that. But like, didn't know
Yeah.
what it meant. But
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil that for your half. But anyway, they sort of strike a bargain that this fox is going to help Ame, and in return, Ame will give the fox as much chicken as it desires. So, all that to say, they now know their next step is to travel to find Ursulon. And do you want to take it from there?
Yes, sir. So, get my notes. Just accidentally closed them. But so now Ame having this fox familiar, like Blake said, they just kind of have this funny moment. But now that that is completed, they decide to go back to the cottage and basically pack up to go on this journey to find Ursulon. So they head back, and Ame begins packing. But as this young witch who, for the most part, hasn't left this cottage for her entire adult life, is very confused on what to grab. She's like, should I bring the fire poker? And Suvi's like, no, we don't need a fire poker. So she's kind of stressed and anxiously stress packing. And during this, she does, and we'll talk more about this in the discussion because I'm a little bit in the murkiness on exactly what takes place here. But she goes upstairs, and Grandmother Rin is kind of like has turned white, or there's described something like that is happening. But next thing we know is that Ame has this urn
Right.
with a rooster on it, and she actually takes it back up to the shrine, Mr. Soup's shrine, and I think performs a little ritual. Like I said, we'll touch more on this in our discussion. But after that, she comes back to the cottage for a bit more packing. And one thing of note that here is that we're told that Suvi notices an old shawl that she used to wear when she was, over here that summer, that she used to like wrap herself in for comfort. And I think she grabs that. And then they're off to go find Ursulon, with the new fox familiar leading the way by following the scent of rosemary and pine. And it's here that we get a bit of a travel montage with Brennan describing the different landscapes that they're passing through, and excuse me, often saying that the fox will suddenly just stop, turn, and start going up a completely new direction, citing that he's found a fresher trail to follow. There were also times when he would comment that, oh yeah, the person we're tracking has come through here several times.
Right.
And more of that happens until eventually they arrive at this salty sea city of Joris. I think I'm saying that right. And there's like a lower portion of the city that is, connected to the sea, obviously. And then there is a higher cliffside portion of the sea. And this place is about 5 times bigger than Silbury. So Ame is pretty overwhelmed. Um, The fox continues to lead them into the city, into these like this farming land within the city. And here they can see that this traveling fair has been set up in this farmland. And they see signs for a performance, a stage performance of Sir Gallant and the Princess Bryony. And they make their way to it, and they kind of find themselves standing in the back of the audience as this play begins. And Professor J.B. Adelaide strides out kind of as the ringmaster, the showmaster of this play, and introduces it. And it's a very low budget production, kind of like high school play vibes with the cardboard cutout sets and
How
kind of
dare you?
lackluster costumes.
How dare you not
Um,
give justice to it?
yeah, my bad, my bad. But so there is a princess who is basically trapped in this tower, and she is looking for a knight to save her. And there's a knight on stage as well because she's been trapped by a monster. So the monster enters the stage, and it is none other than Ursulon. And the crowd begins to boo and yell. And this, of course, upsets Ame and Suvi. And so Ame yells at them to shut up. And Ursulon hears this and notices his old friends in the crowd and basically freezes. He is very ashamed and embarrassed. And there's kind of a moment where like the knight like tries to continue the play, but Ursulon basically is too caught off guard, and he eventually just runs off stage. Um, Backstage, he argues with Professor Adelaide and tells him like, I got to get out of here. I can't do it. And Adelaide's like, the show must go on. What are you doing? Ursulon explains that like there's some people here, and Adelaide is actually a bit more empathetic at this part. But then Ursulon's like, "Can I have my music box? Like, I gotta go." And Adelaide's like, "No, you can't have your music box. Like, we let you work here because you gave us that. Like, you're a freeloader. Like, no, you cannot have the music box back." So Ursulon takes off and just tries to hide away from Suvi and Ame. And the knight that he was on stage with, he kind of runs into him. He's like, "Yo, Ursulon, what's going on?" And Ursulon's like, "Hey, there's people here. They can't see me." And the knight's like, "Okay, I'll run interference for you." So the knight runs into Ame and Suvi, and he's like, "Yeah, I haven't seen him. What are you talking about?" And Suvi shatters the glamour on her staff, like revealing she is a wizard, and is like, "Where is he?" Basically doing an intimidation
Yeah.
check. And the knight just like, "Okay, sorry." He just steps out of the
Yeah.
way.
It's like, right this way.
So they continue kind of searching through these tents, and they do actually find Ursulon. And yeah, he is just very deeply shamed and embarrassed that they have seen him like this. And obviously Ame and Suvi are his friends, so Ame like tries to comfort him, but Suvi's like, I'm not good at the emotional stuff. And she actually finds out that Professor Adelaide has the music box, so she's like, "I'm gonna go take care of that. Ame, you handle the emotional damage here." So Suvi steps out, goes and confronts Professor Adelaide in his office, again intimidates him, and he quickly folds like a wet napkin, and she actually does go and retrieve the music box. Meanwhile, though, Ame and Ursulon are talking, and excuse me, the moment Blake alluded to a bit earlier with the fox, Ame's like, "Hey, can you give us a moment?" And the fox is like, "Yeah, sure." And he just stands there. It's like, "No,
Yeah,
can
that's
you
right.
leave?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, sorry." So they get their little private talk, and Ursulon again just explains that he's kind of embarrassed, like this isn't what he thought he was going to do with his life. And Ame, of course, is being a good friend, but she quickly fills Ursulon in on what's happened and is like, "Hey, we need Wavebreaker. We need that sword." And Ursulon says, "I don't have it. I
Ooh,
actually
about
had to
that.
trade it away for shelter a while back." And she's not upset with him at all. And she just says, "You know what? With the sword gone, we now have your quest." And that's actually where the episode ends, unless I missed anything.
No, it's great.
Okay.
And if you're watching just the recap, check the description for the whole episode discussion. And we want to know what you think about the episode too, so check that out as well. Will, what'd you think?
Yeah. um, I loved it, man. I'm really enjoying
Yeah,
this. I Well, what do you think? I want to launch into something, but I'll save it for after
I thought it was
our
great.
this
Yeah, I
quick
mean, I'm
section.
listening to it with my wife, and so it obviously because we have to like sync two schedules to like watch it together.
Mhm.
It takes a bit longer. So actually, I like the every 2 weeks pacing
Yeah.
because it gives us time like we're driving with and funny enough our kids get really quiet whenever like we're driving and we're listening to it
Really?
so it's kind of
That's
nice, yeah.
fun.
But yeah, we have to listen to it in chunks. But it kind of gives us an opportunity to think about different sections a bit more.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm loving it. I really like it. I like that we got our little commercial from the company that does the production side of it.
Dark Horse, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they're doing a good job. I'm enjoying this so far.
Yeah, me too. It leaves me wanting more each week, and like you said, with the 2 week break, that's kind of just exacerbated, but kind of in a good way. But yeah, I'm loving it. And what I wanted to get into was just again, I really enjoy just the sound design and the production value that's going into it. Specifically from this episode, the Pilgrim Under the Stars, or the Man in Black, or whatever. That voice,
Man in
man,
Black,
was
or
was
was it Men in
so.
Black?
Yeah, I don't know exactly. It was
I need to
like,
go back and listen to it again because
yeah.
I did listen to it again to catch the names to see if it was three names, just to get kind of like a power level of this guy.
Yeah.
But then I can't remember what was said.
It was I think Pilgrim Under the Stars was one.
Yeah,
Maybe the King in Black. Maybe that's what it was. And then
I
there
don't even
was
know.
another one too.
Well, now that I'm saying it, I don't even know if King was even mentioned. Now that I'm saying it, but yeah, there was like a Traveler of the Night, Pilgrim under the or Traveler under the Stars. There was something for both of them. I can't remember honestly,
I was gonna see if I wrote
but
this down. Pilgrim Under the Stars, The Man in Black, The King of Night. That's what I wrote
okay,
down, at least. That might not be
yeah,
right, but
okay,
um yeah, awesome. And you probably haven't listened to the fireside chat, have you?
no,
Okay, I'll probably interspice some stuff from that for those of you that you didn't listen to it. But one thing was that they were all like so impressed with what Taylor came up with for the voice, because obviously in the live recording, Brennan didn't have those
yeah,
effects on his voice. And I think Lou was like, "Yeah, I was scared. Like that was scary. I was like, I almost told you to like, hey, tone it down. That's too scary."
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just thought that was phenomenal. And Brennan even said, I think the girls, Ama and Suvi, started referring to that entity as the stranger. And so Brennan said, "Yeah, I loved that. So like that's what I refer to it now as in my notes. Like he calls it the stranger."
Oh
So
man,
it'll be, and I think that was obviously a meta
yeah,
conversation, but I'm
sure.
curious if maybe the stranger might become another one of that thing's titles.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I don't want to assume anything, but since Suvi got the history check of like the scariest thing she read about had three names, and this one had at least three, I'm assuming this one's going like we're going to learn more names as time goes on.
Yeah.
Because it's a very nice little metric for power level, and this guy seems terrifying.
Yeah.
Like
So
big bad energy.
for sure. I don't. I may have just said this, but even if I did, it warrants a second saying. But shout out Taylor Moore for just
Yeah.
the production on that. But yeah, this feels like a good place to just go ahead and start, because I
Yeah.
kind of want to dive in on that guy a little bit. Um, there's probably a few different things I want to touch on here, but the first thing that's coming to mind right now is, he showed up. Oh well, the first thing is one of the discussion points we had last episode was what exactly was happening with that time dilation stuff. Was it something Grandmother
Hmm.
Wren did? Was it always there? We now know the answer to that this was related to him and not
Right.
anything that the witches were doing, which
Right.
one is just badass. Night literally follows this guy wherever he goes to the extent that it warps time. Um, this dude definitely, if not big bad, is big bad powerful.
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously there's some like Grim Reaper kind of vibes in that he's showing up when someone died, and he carries Night with him. Were you
Well,
and like
w-
everything died in the house, or like the milk
yeah.
spoiled and stuff.
I don't think Grandmother Wren dying is what caused him to come. I think it was Suvi's
Suvi
foot
stepping on the road.
touching. Right. Because I don't know if you told me this or if I got this from Reddit, but from the children's stories, one of the rules was
Hmm.
you shouldn't ever touch the road or something like that. Right. Um,
Yes.
so her foot touches the road, and presumably, I mean, he knows where this place is, right? I mean, he knows who Grandmother Wren is. I'm an old friend of Grandmother Wren. Um, So I'm wondering, like, the mechanism here of, like, what does the road do that allows his presence? And I don't know. It's
Well,
interesting.
so last step I was on that page as well. That stranger showed up because Suvi stepped out on the road. But now I don't know if I'm on that page anymore because I feel like he wasn't there for Suvi. He was there for Grandmother Rin. But are you
Well,
saying that like
we
he
don't
just?
know. I mean, we don't know he was. I mean,
I guess that's fair.
he could just be, yeah, I know Grandmother Inn, let me in. Um, I mean, who knows,
And that
honestly.
in that scenario, you're saying that was just his excuse to kind of like get them to open the door.
Yeah, maybe it's like, because there's a lot of like interesting nods to other fiction. Like I think about like
Yeah.
vampires having to be invited in, like they can't pass like the seal of a door without being invited in, and so
Right.
it feels like there's some kind of allusion to that. So yeah, I could see like, oh, I know Grandmother Inn, let me in. But I don't know. I think bottom line, this is definitely setting the scene for a big bad type character that may not get resolved anytime in the near future, since we had the 1 year um, date placed.
Right. So, all right, let's call this two possibilities here. Not that there couldn't be more beyond that, but the Suvi possibility, he showed up because of the road, and then the grandmother Rin died, and that's why he showed up.
Sure.
You're leaning road.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm leaning grandmother Rin died because it did seem as if he knew she was dead. Do you
I mean,
agree
I
with
could
that?
believe that. Yeah, and I could believe that being the case for either scenario,
Right.
especially since she's tasked with guarding like a deep
The
power.
heart of the world or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess and not that I want to get too lost on this, but with the road thing, and I still haven't finished the children's adventure for those of you that have. But I'm wondering, like, surely, and I think we maybe even touched on this last week or last episode. Um, but there's no way that Suvi hasn't stepped on roads since becoming like an adult and leaving Grandmother Inn's house. But maybe it was specifically that road that she couldn't touch.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah. Her whole life, she's never touched a road.
um. Anyway. So I guess I just was gonna ask. I was getting kind of Grim Reaper ish. I mean, clearly he's a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yes.
kind of getting
Right.
Grim Reaper vibes. What vibes, if not that, kind of were you thinking? Like, is this just like an assassin sent after Suvi? Like, if that is the case, or what were you? What's kind of
No,
the vibe
I
or
think it's a
pulse?
spirit. I think it's
Well,
a
yeah, but
spirit.
it could still spirit assassin.
Oh yeah, sorry. I
You know?
thought you meant like sent like a political intrigue kind of thing.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I don't know. I think of the oatmeal man or like the poltergeist bad guy is
it's the
because
oatmeal man.
the logo on the oatmeal container.
Was there like a urban legend about him or something?
It just looks scary, bro. Hang on.
Oh, okay.
Oh, your favorite number. Blake doesn't like the oatmeal guy.
I just
I get
figured
it.
there was more to it than that.
Okay, so I saw Poltergeist as a kid. It was terrifying. And then I noticed that the oatmeal logo, the Quaker Oats guy. Look at this guy here. See?
I mean, yeah, I don't want to run into that guy in a dark alley for sure, but
So
I just
there's
I just didn't know if
okay.
there was more to it than that.
You got this guy, okay, and then you got Poltergeist, bad guy.
Which Pixelist podcast where we uncover
Yeah,
childhood trauma.
they're basically the same.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying.
So that's the vibe I got when he was even describing him. I was like, oh man, he sounds like the oatmeal guy. And then when he said Pilgrim, like Pilgrim of the Night or Pilgrim Under the Stars, I was like, oh my gosh, it is the oatmeal
It's him.
guy. So
It's
I just think deeply evil bad guy, spiritual bad guy that decays, corrupts, whatever. I think the
yeah.
detail of like the milk going bad was incredibly atmospheric and
Yeah,
terrifying.
necrotic aura or something going on.
Yeah, and I think this character is limited in some way by like we know there's this interesting power dynamic between the spiritual world. We heard it from the peddler in the first episode, like who came first and like where does sort of like authority lie. And we even had that conversation of like shifting of, we actually came from the spiritual realm and it wasn't vice versa. And like they were our fathers. And yet here's this peddler trying to enslave Ursulon. So there's this interesting dynamic. And so I wonder if that same concept is true where there's restrictions on how they travel here and away, and maybe that the road is how that's exemplified, or being invited into a house, or I don't really know, but I think it's someone super evil who likely wants his hands on the power that Grandmother Wren was guarding, which, interestingly enough, has not been talked about. And maybe, I guess, potentially even is part of the intentions behind the curse. So.
Yeah. Okay, a couple of things on that is, one, I can shed a little bit of light, and it's not a definitive answer, but it does shed some light from the children's adventure, if you don't mind.
No, yeah.
Okay, this isn't like a plot point that spoils like a major thing that happens in the children's adventure, but it's kind of some lore that Brennan shares, and I won't share the context on how we find out. That way, it won't be like you can still experience it yourself. But we're told there's these three things basically: sunlight, doors, and beds. And those three things have like an impact on spirits in the material world, let's call it. And so different spirits have like a different relationship with each of those things. Like one might be, for sake of the conversation here, one might be really good at sunlight and really bad at doors. So without going into it further than that,
I'm just not good at doors, man.
But so on that point, it may be that certain spirits must be invited in. Like if they're, again, bad at doors, let's call it. Maybe we can have a deeper conversation about this at some point later where I won't be as vague. But to me, that's what was going on. And maybe even the perpetual night is similarly tied to that. Like maybe he cannot be in sunlight, but he's so powerful that just darkness follows him. So I would imagine that was what's going on there. But yeah, I think, and not every spirit, but I think most probably do need to be invited in, similar to like a vampire or other folk tales and stuff like that. But I just thought that was really interesting. And for my money, I guess I'm probably with you. Again, I'm team he came because of Rin dying. So I think that he could sense that or something. And, since she's already dead, it's not as if he wants to harm her. So my best bet is that the power that you referred to is that he wants this heart of the world. But to that end, and this is just going to be pure speculation from us, but I'm curious what you think. If that feels like that could have gone a number of ways. I don't think that was railroaded in the sense of Brennan knew Ame was going to say come back in a year, and in fact, he didn't know that given the fireside chat that I listened to. So I'm curious, maybe
1 hour.
I'm curious what would have happened had they let him in. Like Brennan had to at least be prepared for that. Now again, that didn't happen that way. So, I guess there's not too much point in talking about it, but I don't know, that my mind started racing with like, well, okay, clearly this guy's out of their league and above their thing. Would he have just let them be, but done what he was coming to do? I don't know if you had any thoughts about that, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. And for me, it's hard to like do deep speculation of like, what if this happened? But I do know, knowing from what Brennan has said before, of like part of being a great DM is like deeply knowing your players. And when you know your players, you don't have to railroad, because when you lay paths out, you just know the path that they're going to take. And it preserves their autonomy and decision making, but it also sort of frees you up to not have to think of every scenario. I would venture to guess Brennan suspected as much, that Ame would have said no. You can't come in. The fact that her grandmother has just died, as her granddaughter would want to sort of protect the sacredness of the home. Like you wouldn't invite any visitor in, much less a much more creepier one.
Right.
But had she let him in, yeah, I don't know. We definitely wouldn't have had some kind of combat. I assume, all roads lead to Rome kind of situation where, Brennan's gonna at least clue them in on you got to get this guy out of your house. So,
Right.
but who knows?
Yeah, I think there was some comment made, maybe I guess in episode 1, about like there are lots of powerful like artifacts and things in that house.
Right.
Which with how
Yes.
strong he was, it was probably the heart of the world. But I guess there are probably lots of things that maybe people would want that were in there.
Right.
Um, a couple, oh, two quick things, and then this I'm kind of moving away from this, unless you had anything else
No,
on this
yeah, that's
guy.
good.
One I wanted to, well, one thing they mentioned in the fireside chat that they realized that they didn't mention on mic for the episode was that if some people were wondering, like, so they just all left the cottage and now it's just unguarded and untended to while
I
they're
was,
on this
yeah,
adventure.
I was wondering about that, about like the legendary items and stuff. Like, are people gonna come ransack it or?
Yeah, so they touched on this and they said, yeah, we had a conversation about this, but it must have not been on mic. Which was that Mr. Soup was going to tend to those things while they were gone. That was kind of the long-standing relationship between Mr. Soup and Grandmother Wren, is that, she built him that shrine and they, make offerings to him, and then he helps take care of things when
We did get the
need be.
detail because they talked about like, do we need to feed like the hens and things like that, and we got the detail of like the budding sprouts coming out next to the shrine, implying that Mr. Soup was going to take care of the area. But it sounds like maybe there's like a stronger ward over the home for like a random passerby coming by, or I don't know.
Well, Mr. Soup, similar to Ursulon, has, and I guess they mentioned this in the fireside chat too, but has like a glamour form. So he will like
Okay.
be a humanoid form, and I guess like live in
Oh,
there while they're gone,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. Okay.
just be like
Yes.
the groundskeeper.
Yes, that makes sense. Okay, cool.
So that was one thing, and then the other thing, which I alluded to during my recap, is I wanted to get your pulse on what exactly happened with Grandmother Wren, because I don't know if I missed it or if it was just kind of glossed over. But
It was
is
glossed over. It was like a 15-second.
okay, is the implication that she was in that urn though? It had a rooster on it, so I was like, could be Taro, but he was a familiar, and didn't he like evaporate into the wind?
He dissipated. Yeah.
Okay, so then her ashes were in there presumably, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That was what I took from it, but since they went through it so fast, I wasn't sure if that was what happened.
Yeah. They kind of glossed over it for sure.
Okay.
Which is fine,
So,
I guess. But
yeah.
I do have another question, not necessarily about her. I didn't know if you're wanting to leave like this setting or not, but I
I
wanted to ask
didn't really
about.
have a plan, so yeah, go
Well, I
ahead.
was just thinking about the things that Steele wanted Grandmother Wren to have. The
Right.
star constellations, which is obviously something,
Mhm.
and the
The forms,
the forms.
the
Yeah,
animal
yeah.
things, yeah.
What what do you think's going on there?
I don't know, it seemed like, because one, we know Urine, is that his name?
Yorin,
Urine?
Yorin. Yeah,
Um Urine. I didn't even realize that. Anyway, Euron.
Yorin.
Yorin. Okay, you're in trouble. Yorin. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, it seemed like, I guess it was based on how Suvi reacted. That this was like like it was very like sacred knowledge to know. Or am I making this up? That like that was like a hidden thing. Like you keep that really close to your chest, what your transformation is. Or am I making this up?
She There was I don't know if that was the case, but she did seem to say a line or something about like tell no one of any of this or something, or
Yeah.
like keep this on the DL. But I think it may be related to her comment on the mages of Gathmere or Gathmire, who they're at war with.
Hmm.
It may be more like this, having this would kind of imply something about like your allegiance with the Citadel. So like, don't show this to anybody. That may be what the implication was, but also, yeah, there was something kind of uh, irreverent about it, I guess. That was like, we really shouldn't be looking at this, or not even that, I guess, but just like, it's not like, oh, hey, cool, look at these drawings,
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So yeah, I wasn't entirely sure what to make of it, and the reason I had that line drawn is because I remembered in Harry Potter, you like there's some people could like turn into animals. I don't remember what they were called, but like Sirius Black could turn into the wolf, and I remember there was like a registry of like this person can turn into this, and I know like if you had like a secret one, it was like a really like one you're not supposed to, but two it kind of like protected your identity in that like if people saw a big wolf around they wouldn't know that that was Sirius Black or whatever.
Spoilers, bro.
So I don't know if this is a fair line to draw, but I was wondering if it was like a similar thing, like they just kept their
Yeah, okay.
transformation secret so that they had some anonymity in
Yeah,
whatever they were doing, I
yeah,
guess.
right. Okay,
um
yeah, that's interesting. I'm curious if we're gonna get like this is like where I think Brennan does a great job like describing these things, but I really want like some fan art,
oh
where
yeah.
I can just visualize it just a little bit more, because I can kind of get there, but I'm also like, man, I want to see what they're seeing, which they're not seeing anything because it's
Right.
make believe, but
But what's in
and
their
then
mind?
there's obviously, I'm kind of wondering like that night, which I don't know if we've gotten any more clarity in the children's story, but that night with Yoren, who's a friend of the father,
Hmm.
but he's from Gathmir, which they're at war with. Like, what's going on there? Is Yoren still around? I don't know. It's interesting.
I From where I am in the children's adventure, I haven't there hasn't been anything like that yet. um
Okay.
but another on those drawings and stuff, if it's not the connection I just said, um, maybe shining some more light on what you were saying, I wonder if it's is it Gathmir? What is the
It's either Gathmire or Gathmir. I think it's
Gathmire?
Gathmir.
Okay. But clearly, like Ame said, aren't we at war with them? So maybe Suvi was like, can't show this to anybody because maybe like these are spies that are working with the Citadel that shouldn't be. So maybe it's like a CIA, a like secret identity list, like that can't get out because all those people would be compromised at that point. So maybe it's
Oh,
something
okay.
like that, like
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And then the stars thing, and Brennan said something around the lines of like, Grandmother Wren would always joke about like which stars are playful or mischievous. It feels like there's something, I would assume some connection like with the spirit world or something. I don't know. Um, and all this to say, what exactly is going on with Steel, and why would Steel want her to have this, knowing that she was going to die soon? Or did she even really want Grandmother Wren to have it, knowing that Grandmother Wren would die and that ultimately she could give it to Suvi, but couldn't directly give it to Suvi because it would look bad? I don't know.
Mm.
I mean, my mind goes like 10 different places.
Yeah, that's a good point about her dying. um I don't know, but that does I'm glad you brought this up because that does lead me to a larger discussion about Steel that I wanted to have. In that I'm not saying she's like the big bad, but I could see her being
Bro, what?
a little bit darker than we realized. And
Where are
I
you
don't
going with
not
this?
trying to get like too meta in terms of storytelling, but like the connection for like the kind of revealed evil is there in that she was like really good friends with the mom and dad, but they died, but she somehow made it. And like if there is like this corruption, for lack of a better word, in the Citadel, maybe she's kind of at the heart of it. Maybe I don't know, and maybe I don't know. It's just I'm not saying it's the case, but the pieces are in place for it to be later. Like, so I'm not saying like anything's really happened that's like, oh, she's evil, but like the pieces are on the board for that to happen, I guess is what I'm saying.
Bro, how could you besmirch the good name of Steel? Her mom, Suvi's mom's best friend, basically her aunt. And here you are saying,
Yeah, which she had all the reason in the world to be emotional in that episode 1 scene where she's like, I only just give you bad news, and like uh So I'm not saying there needed to be an ulterior motive, or like, when she broke down saying like, I promised your mom that I was going
Mm,
to protect her. And then Suvi says like, well, there's some very like meaningful
yeah.
passage about like magic and the essence of that. Um, Maybe there was like an extra layer to that sadness, knowing that she had to, and maybe it wasn't like a just pure evil thing, but maybe for whatever reason, like that sacrifice had to be made, and it was Steel that decided or something. I just feel like there's potential there for we don't know the full story exactly with Steel, and I lead that all into the grandmother Rin stuff, because like you said, that kind of doesn't add up if they knew she was dying and yet she sent Suvi with this stuff to give her. And how did she know she was dying? Are they like, does grandmother Rin have this solidified relationship with the Citadel as an
Mm,
entity, or is it just with Steel? Because we know grandmother Rin had a relationship with Soft and Stone, at least.
right.
Because in episode 1, when Suvi shows up and as an adult, the grandmother Rin thinks it's her mom, right? I think she's like, oh,
Yeah.
Soft or
Yes.
Steel,
Yes.
or neither of those. What's her name? Stone, I think.
Stone. Yeah. I'm assuming when she got sick, she was kind of like getting her affairs in order and chatted with Steel, which I'm not on, Team Steel's evil, by the way. I think, we're all going to get today where she's vindicated and you're going to say sorry. However, if she's been chatting with Steel, getting her affairs in order, hey, I'm dying, it would be interesting if she confided in Steel about like, hey, just so you know, like here's like the last loose ends that like just for my estate and Ame and whatever. And if Steel was the one who cursed her, like
Oh,
realizing, oh, we can't let that, we can't dabble with that. It's not, it's best that's unspoken.
yeah.
And someone, because you have to wonder, someone as powerful as Grandmother Ren, how could she be cursed and like not see it coming? Well, if it's someone deeply close to her, I could see something like that. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
and also explains why neither of them seem to have been expecting Suvi either.
right.
I mean, you would
True.
think there would have been a conversation. I don't know, and maybe Steele didn't think she'd make it in time. I don't know. But point being, to what you're saying, if those documents are like you're not supposed to have those things, I wonder if that's sort of like an intentional, you know, caught red-handed type of thing
Yeah.
of
Like
like, yeah,
planting some evidence
yeah.
type of
I
thing.
like how we took your stupid little comment about Steele, and now we have like the whole the next 10 episodes of like
Charlie Day.
Steele's betrayal. Yeah.
Um,
So that reminds me of a character I have in my D&D campaign where the party just always assumes he's evil and they always think he's doing something. He's done nothing but be nice to them, heal them, level them up, all these things. They're just like, who are you?
well, now we got to know, is he evil?
I can't answer that because my wife will watch this.
Oh, okay. Just blink
But no,
once
he's
if
not.
he's evil though. Okay. Yeah, so I don't, I feel like this is something we could maybe we could, as it goes on, maybe, you know,
Yeah.
press out the
Yeah.
juices into an actual strong theory, but the pieces are there. And again, not that the
Are they though?
conclusion, not that the conclusion to this has to be that she's evil, but the conclusion is that she hasn't been telling the truth about
I
certain things.
I think that is probably fair. That being what's her title, like the sword of the city or the
Yeah,
lead
Sword
mage
of the
or
Citadel, which I mean, we don't know how the hierarchy of
yeah, I
power works,
mean
but it seems like she's up there.
yeah, and so there's definitely like an opportunity for ignorance where like she didn't ask questions and didn't pry, but she did her duty. But it definitely seems like it's ripe for opportunity where, in her mind, for the greater good, either made decisions or kept things in the dark that maybe she shouldn't have.
Yeah, like maybe for the greater good, she had to kill Suvi's parents or something. Because
Bro, you are so like maybe for the greater
for the
good,
greater
she
good in her mind,
murdered
anyway.
everyone.
Because one interesting thing is that we still don't know what the context of that opening scene was. Like, because we have
Right,
this seemingly powerhouse of civilization in the Citadel, and they're literally in the Citadel when it's happening, and they have to flee. So, like, was there a
right.
civil war? Was there some sort of attack that got that far, that breached that far inward? Or were Suvi's parents, and I don't mean a negative connotation on this necessarily because we don't know if the Citadel's good or bad, but were Suvi's parents like turning against the Citadel? We know they're working
Oh,
with
okay.
Urine.
Yorin.
Urine. We know they're working with him. Maybe it wasn't that he was a spy. Maybe it's that they were, you know,
Yeah.
and maybe Steele
Oh,
was like, not necessarily that conclusion, but there's a lot of
like
interesting
a
things here.
like a Snape and Dumbledore situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
In any case, there's some interesting stuff happening, but to go back to the stuff Steele gave Suvi, that what you brought up is something I didn't even think about, which is she knew she was dying. What's with giving her that information? Unless she was trying to get it to Ame, like maybe she knew that Rin dies, there will be a witch to replace her. Maybe this witch can keep these things safe. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um, but we do know that Ame looked for like a hidden code or a secret in the book, but like because she's not a wizard, she couldn't even
Right.
scrape the surface of it. Which Suvi didn't. So I'm wondering if maybe we'll get Suvi taking a crack at that book later and maybe get some more answers. Um, yeah, glad you brought that up. I know we went off on that. So
Yeah.
what uh
Well,
to
it feels
the
like
go ahead.
I'll say before we leave Grandmother Wren's house, I was just going to talk about the familiar, but
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too.
okay. Love the fox. If
Yeah,
something happens to him, I will.
we're quitting the show.
Yeah, we're done. This is the best character. I like Ursula Lou being like, all right, when I get my familiar, he better be this cool.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. It's basically just Brennan's voice, sort of, with like a little bit
Yeah.
of sauce on it. There was a funny line in the fireside chat about, and I don't know if it was. I think the conversation was brought up during the Pilgrim of the Stars moment, not the Fox moment. Because the Pilgrim of the Stars obviously had a bunch of effects on it. But Brennan was like, yeah, usually it's just like for villains, it's my voice with a little bit of a twang on top of it. And he was like, yeah, the Fox is my voice, but a little whatever, a little
Mhm.
exaggerated, maybe, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
But anyway, the revelation that he got to was like, yeah, for villains and love interests, I basically use my own voice. And he's like, don't unpack that. And it was just really funny.
I
Uh,
actually will say it's been encouraging listening to him create such compelling characters. Steel. Man, why do they have to do this with naming convention? Steel is basically his voice, just lighter. But it was encouraging me as a DM not to open a can of like, well, you don't try to be Matt Mercer, but Matt, who has like a voice for every character. A lot of Brennan's characters, Brennan has a few different voices, but a
mm,
lot of them share the same voice,
right.
and yet the characters are incredibly compelling and very like visual is the word I keep thinking of. Like I can see the character, I can see the
Hmm.
interaction. So as like a DM, I'm like, yeah, maybe I could stop trying to do that one impression.
Yeah, for
So
sure. He definitely, you don't have to be a professional voice actor by any means, and he's very much proof of that. Even though, like you said, he does do some great voices, as well. Uh, what?
I was
So,
just laughing at, he's very much proof that you don't have to be a good voice actor to.
um,
They weren't saying that, but anyway.
one thing you just mentioned that I wanted to bring up back kind of during the Pilgrim thing was the spirits and uh not wanting people to know their true names, which is something we speculated on with the mages and having these S names.
Yes.
So obviously wizards aren't spirits, but I'm wondering if there's a line to be drawn there about that. It's a similar situation where they don't want people to have power over them, so they have these nicknames or whatever.
I think evidence is there for sure. I think even if it's not the case, we were on the right track with like the power of names.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, yeah, I don't really have more to say on it, but I just wanted to
no, yeah,
retouch on that since we speculated on it last episode and we
yeah,
kind of had some more water in that bucket for that
yeah.
theory with this. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, do you want to talk about Joris and
Joris, yeah.
Ursulon and
I do. One last thing on the familiar is uh we talked about how they've homebrewed the witch class for this show,
Yeah.
And one of the things they talked about in, I think it was the first fireside chat, they kind of went through like the flavor of the witchcraft, like the witch class and what was behind it. And one of the things is that they have these familiars, obviously, and they're much more beefed up compared to a like a
Yeah.
normal familiar from 5e that we're used to. So a couple things I thought were cool. Excuse me. Ugh, got like a burp. Was that it's a real animal. Like it's not like
Yeah.
purely conjured from magic.
Yeah.
Which, and again, I don't remember if this was from the fireside chat or the episode, but they brought up how like some wizards have familiars too, but those are conjured from magic. So we might see more of a 5e familiar, but they're going to be vastly different from what Ame's is. So I liked that it was a real
Mhm.
creature. And I'm interested just to see what they can do. And they're also kind of like a foil to the caster, and foil might not be the right word, but they kind of exemplify kind of the character flaws
Yeah.
in their masters.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
So you know,
And am I making this up? Did they say they were going to have a witch like class description written up or coming at some point?
yeah, they said they were going to release the witch class. They didn't give any type of time frames, but
Yeah. Okay.
at some point we will get
I
that.
thought I remembered that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm just excited to see more. I'm really just interested in the character as a whole. I'm curious in that they aren't conjured, if there is a way to bring him back if he is to die, because
Don't
in
you
5e
dare.
if your familiar dies you can just resummon him.
It's never going to
Is that the
happen, man.
case?
He's going to be happy and well fed, and nothing bad will ever happen to him.
So say we all.
So say we all.
But yeah, so yeah, now on to Joris, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you have anything?
Well, I was just going to say, I'd have a lot of thoughts, and I'm trying to think about over like the next 20 minutes how to like where to start with it. But I just feel so bad for Ursulon, man.
Yeah.
Not just the fact, did it throw you at all? So here's my first thought when they describe Sir Gallant and the princess, whatever, knowing how much he admired the knight from the children's stories. I thought Sir Gallant was going to be him in his glamour form. And so when it turned out that he was the ogre, I just felt really bad for him. And then, him just talking the stories about how he had to trade away Wavebreaker just to have a place to stay in wintertime. He had to give away the music box. And he talks about how Lou talks about how Ursula notices like even smells like the food in their pockets and like knows how they're well fed. And this is someone who's lived a very, very hard life. And I kind of wonder, it made me sad, but then I also kind of wondered, like, can he not go back to the spiritual world? Like, is he stuck here? Because it seems like all the things that excited him about that first interaction with the knight and learning about like these like duty and honor and things that he really was motivated by, it seems like he's realized life is much less sexy than that, and yet he remains here.
Yeah.
So
I
don't know.
I can shed light on that from the children's adventure, but I'll leave that if you want to know, or if you want me to tell you, or if you just want to wait until you get to that yourself.
I think I'll wait.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it does shed some light on that.
Okay.
But yeah, it is terribly sad, and it's something they joked about that like this was so sad, and Brennan's like, they told me what their characters and backstories they wanted to be. But he's like, yeah, they're very, very sad. They're like,
chat.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And Lou was like, Lou made a comment of like, I thought we were gonna do more of the play, like more of like the high school play would be acted out, because he's like, I thought that would be really funny, and then it just got really sad.
I like how they had him like the woman like repeating her lines and kept like talking about like the sparrow or whatever, and like,
yes,
say another bird. There's so many other birds. But yeah, I just.
But yeah, it's just, I mean, it really is like devastatingly sad. It's like having all these aspirations and hopes and dreams and not having accomplished any of them, and now being forced to have these people that like knew you when you were young and had those
Yeah.
dreams, and they now see you in this very exposed
Yeah.
place.
Dehumanizing
Yeah,
or de-dignifying way, undignified way.
yeah.
Um,
So yeah, it was hard to watch, quote unquote, for a podcast. But really, really powerful, I thought. And obviously, we don't know where the story's gonna go, but obviously, the implication is that we're gonna have a nice full arc, assuming he doesn't die at some point. Um, and with that hopefully being the case, what a kind of cool raw place to start. This kid that has these aspirations, and here 20 years later, however it is, like
yeah.
he's utterly fallen short. But I really
And
liked I really liked kind of I don't know if stinger is the right word, but the cliffhanger of this episode being like, we've got your quest. It was kind of like a nice little like upswing of hope, being like,
well, I was going to ask you in the children's story, is he like talking about wanting to go on a quest? And I'm thinking like
well,
as a continuation of like meeting the knight, like
well, right.
adventure and like,
So yeah, without just I can keep it to the first episode, which you've heard in the preludes. The word quest and honor were like the two things he was infatuated with after his first meeting with Sir Curran. So I think that's kind of where that desire came from. And obviously, yeah, he wanted to like be an
yeah,
honorable knight with the quest, just like he was. So yeah, now they have this quest to go find wave breakers. So I thought that was kind of a nice bit of an uplifting note to end on after such a you know sad state of affairs leading up to that. And also, just to throw this out real quick, because it's something we talked about back when they first came out. In the then and nows that I listened to, I got part of the excerpt was this circus play. Um, so I know you.
oh,
So
okay.
without getting too in the weeds on it, when this first came out, Blake and I were listening to it, and I listened to the then and nows, and he started, but then they switched it where they transformed it into the preludes, and so we were like being confused. I was like, "Did you saw the circus, right?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" So,
Are
uh,
we talking about the same thing? But yeah,
so yeah, this is what I was talking about. I saw a little piece of this.
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad to get the music box back. I liked the detail of just like the pure fear of the Citadel. Like the two times Suvi had to make the intimidation check, the characters both times were like, all
Yeah,
right, right away, right away. So, and I think it's a nice setup for, I think, following on Steele's advice. Hey, there's areas that don't give the respect to the
hmm
Citadel that you might expect. I'm looking forward to that intimidation check where she falls on her face, basically.
yeah, or that puts like
So,
a huge target on her back or something.
right, right.
Very interested to get more of the political landscape, as it were.
Yeah.
Um, very curious. And go ahead. I just look at my notes really quick.
Oh, no, I think that's it for me, other than just, I expected to say more about Ursula, but now I'm like, yeah, I said really what I was thinking.
um, sorry, one sec. Do, do, do. I think that's probably all I've got as well. Um, so yeah, we've got episode 3 comes out tomorrow, which is nice.
I'm excited. I have a lot of window time on Tuesdays, so I'll be able to dive into it.
Oh, nice. And this isn't what I was looking for, but it did remind me, kind of on the meta conversation about how this show is made compared to something like Critical Role. I've noticed, and I don't know if it's been, I don't know where I've noticed it, but I have, so I can't give you the exact example. But clearly, they're playing like episode 1, episode 2 isn't they all got together for session 1, ended, came back for session 2. Like I think maybe episodes 1 through 4 could have been all them in one sit down session. That they're then just, now chopping up. And I'm even
I don't
wondering, go ahead.
I don't know if that's the case though, because episode 2 had the intro from Brennan being like, basically, here's what happened previously. So if that happens again, I would think they are splitting up and coming back.
Well,
because it's, or I don't know. You tell me what you think.
I think both can be true. Like for the sake of episode 1 and 2, maybe that was 2 different sessions. So I don't remember somewhere maybe it was in the children's adventure, but it was clear that like it was still the same session, even though we were now on a new episode.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So it's just given the difference in format, let's call it, of this compared to Critical Role, they can kind of do some interesting things like that of deciding to, all right, this is a really natural kind of stopping point, you know, and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
And on that, blah, 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 blah. I'm also interested to know if they would ever like ever shuffle sequences in that same. I don't think they have, and there's nothing that's made me think they have. But just since they have the ability to do that, like, you know, for example, in episode 1, I think it was, other than that very quick intro with Ursulon, the entire episode was Suvi and Ame.
Right.
I don't think there was any splicing there, but I'm wondering, like, in service of that, or in service of avoiding, like, oh, this whole episode we never did anything with Lou, if they ever maybe would like post-production edit segments that weren't necessarily chronological order for how they were played.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting thought, and I'm definitely curious to see like what happens with that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all I got.
All right. Well, you guys let us know what you thought about the episode. New episode coming soon. Last chance, very last chance to post on the giveaway video. Just post literally anything in the comments, and we'll include you in the giveaway. And then we'll be back to announce that winner later this week, along with our Critical Role discussion.
That's right. Oh yeah, thumbnail.
Feels like we should do something about the play, either the play or the stranger.
Oh yeah, both are good. If we did the stranger, one person could be menacing, the other people could be scared. What would we do for the play?
Well, I was looking for like anything around my table that would be like a makeshift knight outfit, but I don't have anything.
You don't have a suit of armor just lying around?
Maybe I had like a helmet or something. I get like a bucket I could just put on my head and but alas, I do not. I could be like the pilgrim and just do kind of like a
I like that, here. And I'll just be scared.
Hang on. Like this. We're not stupid. We're doctors.
Nailed it.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys, and thanks for watching. We'll be back soon.
Bye, y'all.